Welcome back to Rebound with Resilience, a podcast dedicated to raise your resilience, mindset, and mental wellness. On this episode, to talk about an extremely relevant topic to millennials and youth on how to define your own success and pursue your passion despite pressure, despite uncertainty. We have with us a passionate, industrious, multi-talented actor, student, entrepreneur, Genevieve Tan.
Hi guys! Nice to meet all of you.
Also known as Jen Bong X99.
Jenny Bong's
Oh,
99.
Jenny Bong's 99. That's her PayNow account. I was confused.
Don't reveal that to everybody.
Sorry. Why not? People can PayNow you know.
Okay, sure.
Especially when they think that PayNow. Okay, for some context, I was actually paying Jen some money because we have a special. I'll introduce you proper in a while, but I want to introduce something that's an extension of you.
Yes.
It's none other than. Wow, I'm so excited to review this. My new Kairos Spotify frame.
Woo!
Look at this beautiful. I was gonna compliment myself as a
I thought it was a frame.
yeah, I mean the frame is great. But you can see this is kind of a Spotify frame of my own podcast. It's quite interesting. So Jen, actually, we're doing a collaboration.
Yes.
We're doing a collaboration with Kairos Frames. It's actually, you want to talk briefly about it? What do you do?
Right, so Kairos Frames is actually a business that I kickstarted last year, and basically what we do is we produce Spotify acrylic music albums. And so this is a way, I love doing handicrafts, and so I think that this is definitely a way that I can spread joy to people through making handicraft gifts, and like personalized gifts, it really just adds a new dimension of uniqueness to the recipient, right?
Yeah.
So I hope that like through this I can spread smiles to people. And actually, right, if you look here, there is like a Spotify code.
Oh yes.
And you can actually scan it and it leads straight to Kevin's podcast.
Let's do it now. Jen, why not you do the honors?
Sure.
Do you have a phone with you?
Okay, I need to grab my phone.
Okay. Yes, this is okay. Yeah, pretty cool lah. It's quite funny because when I first did this, right, I was scanning the QR code reader.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that is definitely like a common mistake.
Okay.
People don't really know about it, but when people find out about it, they're like, "Wow,
Yeah, there is,
actually can scan music on the go."
Yeah, it's quite cool.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, you just go to Spotify, you go to the camera, and then
You need to click camera. Like, we'll put it in the edit it in.
and then here you go.
Are you
It
following?
leads straight.
Not following my podcast.
Followed. I just
That's
followed.
it. This is the end of this episode. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
but I mean, you can see
that was
it
a
leads
secret.
straight to like
Sure.
all of his podcasts. So it's a good like memorial for him. Like, so like whenever you're like, okay, let me look at all the episodes that I did, and then you just like,
Yeah,
Look
it's
at this
pretty cool.
frame.
I think it's pretty cool because I think over here in Rebound with Resilience, we talk a lot about like resilience being not just internal but external factors as well,
Yeah.
like the strength of your social connections. And so I talk a lot about making people feel valued. It's actually at the back of my board there. Like one of my core values is making people feel special and valued.
right.
And I think this is one great way to do it.
Yes.
Personalized gifts.
Yeah.
It's not just my face lah. It can be multiple things like. It
Yeah.
can be your family, it can be your partner, whatever. And
Yeah.
there are different designs as well. We'll link it up lah.
I think it serves as a
Yeah.
declaration to many individuals as well. Like I ask people to, like personalize messages to encourage people when you're gifting someone.
Sure.
And so like in these moments, like, like when you look at a reminder, a keepsake reminder on your desk, right? It definitely serves as like a positive encouragement to yourself as well.
Yeah. We will go into the details later on in the podcast about the collaboration and everything. The link is below, so you can check it out. But with every $30 you spend on this, you get $2 off exclusive to listeners. And even if you listen to it like 1 year later, and then you listen to this, hopefully the promotion is still
Yes.
ongoing. So it's infinite. So yes, okay. That was the longest introduction we did on the podcast so far. But I think it's worthwhile. So we're gonna do something very important. The reason why I actually got this, right, the more important reason is that I finally have a stand for this stupid thing that keeps flowing around. Okay, you never realize, right? You all never realize you've been using a makeshift stand like forever. It's actually a G-Shock box.
Okay, I didn't even know you needed an acrylic stand.
Yeah, so this is the moment of truth.
But
this one?
I mean, let's try if it fits.
Okay, let's
Hey.
This is be taken with care. I will put it into. Okay, let's fingers crossed. This is the moment, man. All of you supporters, like maybe like 10 of you. 10 supporters. Let's see whether it works. whether this. Wow! Look at Ida's face. You cannot see Ida's face now, but you know he's very happy because this thing is always pissed our production framing.
Wow,
a bit.
okay. This is not just my frames, but my stands as well.
Yeah. Okay, I guess we can go into the podcast finally. We're not here to talk just about frames. We're going to talk about, like I said, how Jen eventually started this company as well. I know you're a student in NUS business.
NTU business.
I was gonna. I was gonna correct myself. With NTU business.
Never do research properly.
No. Okay, fine. We are even now. But NTU business, and she does a lot of things on the side, and you're quite a fascinating story as well. Like you went to JC, and then you didn't do well in your A's, and then eventually you had to go to poly.
Yeah.
Okay lah. It's not very uncommon, but it's still not. It's rare that people.
Yeah.
Do
I
that.
get to experience the best of both worlds.
Okay. So yes, we are today. We're gonna talk about really about your journey in pursuing passion, about the struggles, and of course like defining success, which I think is a really really important topic in today's society, right?
Definitely.
Right, defining your own success, because success is defined by so many things, except our own kind of values and our own authenticity. Jen is somebody that, even though I joke around. Oh, I forgot to mention as well, she's also a woman of faith.
Yes.
That's a core part of your identity.
Definitely.
You call you a Proverbs 31 woman. I know it's I know it's jargon, but it basically Proverbs 31 is like everyone quotes it, right? It's like a typical.
It's what I aspire to be. Yes.
Ideal Christian woman. There's a verse, I think chapter 18, not chapter 18, 31:18. Her lamp burns late into the night. And her
my
dealings
really burns late into the night.
and her dealings are profitable. So I hope that line represents her in some sense. But we're also going to talk about faith, religion, and something that we haven't explored on the podcast, religion as well as resilience.
Yeah.
So really look forward to it because a lot of interesting stuff we're going to talk about today. Okay, enough of me babbling. Let's get straight into it. So we're going to start off with maybe introducing your schooling days, right? Your schooling days before we talk about how you eventually defined your own success. So talk to me about your interesting schooling life.
Yes. Okay. So I was actually from RGPS.
Okay.
Then after that I went to RGS. So like
Basically, she's smart,
no
extremely smart.
no, okay. So basically, when you're in RGS, it's sort of an integrated program. So you go straight to RJC. Yeah. So when I was in RGS, like I already knew that I was going to go into RGC, and I didn't have like O levels or anything like that. Well, we'll dive deeper into the details later. But I think so. In RGS, it was a kind of like moment where I realized that I didn't really just like, I didn't really like studying. I was not really an exams person. Every time like I went into the exams hall, I would sort of like blank out, even though I might have like studied hard for it. And I realized, along the journey in RGS that there were many other things that were keeping me alive. There were many other things that I was passionate about. And it was a journey, as a girl who just like entered puberty and stuff, discovering who I was, discovering like what really made me me and what were things that were driving my lives. And some of that includes like the current passions that I'm chasing as well, which is like content creating, acting, designing. These were just some of the things that were keeping me alive.
Got it.
Yeah. And when I went to JC, I was like, it's yet another like journey another studying journey that you have to go through, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, like I wish I could like hurry get out of it. And people were telling me like, oh, like uni will be fine because like uni is a place that, if you're interested in communications, for example, that's where you could pursue it. But however, I didn't do very well
I cut you off, Jen, a little bit.
Sure.
Because my apologies. I don't usually, because I want to explore a little bit about your primary school first.
Sure.
Because I found it very interesting. Before we get into the juicy parts, right? We'll give you a bit of context. Anyway, I felt I didn't give you justice in introduction, but you are, she's also a really good content creator and actor as well. So she does really multiple things. But I want to go back into, you were mentioning where you really had a very clear identity and your dreams. Yeah. Even from a young age, like comparatively to others. And like you were basically, I wrote them being different in a factory of robots.
Wow.
They-
Factory of robots.
Yeah, because technically schools are factories, right? I mean, in some sense, you put in raw material and then you process it and then you get a so-called like prime product. And a lot of people going through at least RGS, that program will have a certain set path or a certain culture that
Yeah,
they're working towards.
definitely.
But you kind of stood out from young. I want to find out like what was it about it? Was it part personality? Was it environment? And how did that manifest? Because you shared that you also created a dream board and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, talk about
Yeah.
how it manifested.
So actually, since I was in primary school, I went for a lot of motivational camps.
Okay.
I was just like a typical primary school nerd where like every week,
Okay.
right, I'm like the top of like the library readers,
Yeah.
like I'll read like 16 books in a week kind of thing. And I will really like
Oh,
do 习字. You know what 习字? 习字is like, I will like read the book and then I'll copy exactly so that
Okay.
it can improve like my vocabulary. So I was that primary school nerd. Okay, so I definitely did relatively well in PSLE. But I think what actually drove me also as a primary school kid was like the motivational camps that I attended. So I used to be a motivational trainer in Adam Khoo as well. And that was actually also where I attended the camps as a participant myself. Yeah, so since young, since I was in primary school, I already had like a life chart plotted. I had a life chart that was charted out. So when I was in primary school, I was like, okay, at this age, I'm like, when I take my PSLE, what score do I want to get? What secondary school do I want to go to? And so when I was a young girl, I put like, okay, RGS, I want to get like above 260.
It's quite insane.
Yeah, then I want to go like RJC, then I wanted to go to NUS, then like what my future like career is. Yeah, so I had those things charted out and
Before 12.
yeah.
Oh my.
And I pasted it above my wall and I really looked at it and reminded myself every day, okay, like, no, this is where I'm driving towards.
Okay.
So I think since young, I was someone who was already very driven.
Sure.
I was driven by what I wanted to achieve in my life,
Okay.
and certain things that I wanted to pursue. So I guess that really attributed to me knowing, like what are things that I wanted to do as compared to my peers.
Okay. Was it parental factors? Was it more of just self related? Were your parents like, say, Jen, you need to be a certain kind of person?
Actually, no. I mean, I'm not sure how I turned out to be that kind of primary school kid, but I think I just enjoyed the whole process of being driven. I think it really started from like young, like from myself, just like picking up books and enjoying to find out
The
more
love for
about
learning,
the love for learning.
Let's fast forward to a secondary school. You shared that you were doing multiple things and also taking part in competitions where she got first in like the world. Not even Singapore. What competition is that?
Yeah, so that was Odyssey of the Mind.
Okay.
So for you guys who don't know what that is, that's actually a creative problem-solving competition.
Sure.
Basically, they give you a problem and you're supposed to create like a solution out of it. It was something that really, really shaped me as a person, the person that I am today, because it really drove that creative thinking. So when I was in Odyssey of the Mind, I was an actress there as well as a fashion designer. So I made costumes out of like recycled materials such as like apple wrappers, cardboard paper, paint chips. These are just some of the things, So to you, it might sound like, wow, what on earth can you do with those things, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it really forces you to really adapt and be creative, think out of the box. Like you're not just limited to a box. You have to think out of that.
Sure.
And so I represented Singapore for 3 years, from secondary 2 to secondary 4, and definitely it was a place that I spent a huge amount of my secondary school life in. Apart from that, I also did youth for causes. So basically, I actually founded a Children's Cancer Foundation project. It's called the Dreams Work Project. So this project is actually still running, but it's handed down to my juniors already. So I worked with Children's Cancer Foundation to help raise money for like the beneficiary. And I really wanted, I'm someone who really cares about the community and placing an emphasis that, like while we might be privileged, the needy is still there and we need to reach out to them. We need to extend that like helping hand to them. Yeah. So for me, when I founded this project, I wanted to make the dreams of cancer children patients work. Yeah.
Wow, are you still running it slightly?
I'm not running it now, but it's for my juniors. Yeah.
Okay, wow, okay. I'm at a loss for words because I'm just very amazed at the things that you're doing at that age. And studies, what about studies then? Because I know that, one thing, we just pause and just share like kind of a tip for audience, right? Especially if you're studying, is that Like I was just talking to a sports psychologist before this,
Yes.
and he was saying that like you should facilitate failure to help you become more resilient. To facilitate failure, so put yourself in situations where you challenge your creativity, where you feel in a controlled situation, and you learn how to adapt. I think that really, really helps, especially when you're younger, to develop skills beyond just your textbook. So that was what you're about. But doing all these things, you are ultimately still a student.
Yes.
And in so-called elite school, nonetheless, was there any pressure to perform grades-wise, and how do you handle that?
Definitely. I think the pressure was really, really real. In secondary school, everybody is focused on, okay, like, the next obvious goal is JC.
Okay.
And after JC, the next obvious goal is getting into a university. And in a society like Singapore, where it's primarily driven by grades, right? That is the focus of everybody there. Right. In Raffles, we do believe in raising more like multi-talented people. So they do expose us to like a variety of things that we can experiment with. But I guess my peers, they were also primarily involved in the grades part of it. It was challenging. I can't deny that it wasn't. Setting like my foot out and wanting to challenge like the societal norms, wanting to say that, okay, the things that I'm passionate about, these are things that I want to take it further. These are things that I feel that it's what really drives me. Like when I open like when I open like books to study, I'm just like, I read it and I'm like yeah. And definitely, being placed in the environment where everybody is really like smart. It was tough. Definitely, there were a lot of comments from people around me that said like Jen, do you know what you're doing? Why not you just like study hard and get your grades, and then you can do whatever you want in the future. I did find it like a challenging situation where I had to balance like, okay, it was those like growing up moments where you're like, okay, so what actually is important to you? What are things that I want to pursue now? Do I think at that age that if I am different from everybody else, that I can still be someone that I want to be in future? Yeah, so those were some of the questions that I had, at those moments as well.
But of course, we all face pressure from societal pressures, friends, education even, and I think this is the theme of the podcast. And why I made this theme of the podcast, right, is because there is something that really stands out for me when I speak to you, how you're able to stay with your passion, right, despite the pressures around. Even despite all those things, of course, you cannot be 100%, right? But despite all those things, you still kind of knew that this is what you wanted to do. Like you weren't super sweet to the point where you gave it up.
Yeah.
Right? You were still doing all those things.
I don't think I've ever given up on those dreams. Yeah. I think okay, so when it was like peak exam times, right, it was things that were motivating me. It was at the back of my mind and saying like, hey, you can do this after exams.
Okay.
But in the normal like curriculum, these were things that were driving me on a daily basis. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go into JC. We went to the same JC. I'm not as intelligent as Jen. Okay, I DSA'd there. Okay, for those of you that don't know, I DSA'd for my tennis. And then no matter what, I get less than 20 points for O-levels, I still managed to go in. So I was there, and I know that the environment there was pressurizing because everyone around you is really good at what they do, both in the studies and beyond studies as well. Essays they were writing, until now, I cannot write like that at 17. So talk to me about your time in JC.
I think being in Raffles Girls and then after transiting to Raffles Junior College, you kind of get used to the fact that you can never be the best. In terms of like intelligence, there's always someone out there that is like better than you. There was always like people who you look at them and you're just like intimidated. But I told myself, like grades is just one aspect of our lives. Sometimes we place such a huge emphasis on grades that we allow it to overwhelm us so much that it represents our entire identity. But to me, my identity is far more than just letters on a report card. It's really your value, your self-worth, and who you are as a person. And I began to recognize that already in junior college. I began to take ownership of like the things that I was doing. And I recognized that, okay, like these are things that represents me as a person. And faith as well definitely is an integral part of my life.
We'll talk about that soon.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, when I share with youth as well, right? Like when I talk about the concept of identity and self-worth, it's a core concept, especially at the age where they're figuring themselves out And if they cannot find that cornerstone, they get swayed by multiple different pressures,
Yeah.
and that could lead possibly to issues with their mental health or more severe psychological issues. So it's, I mean, one factor, like again, consistent, is that you had an anchor and something that you know, even beyond the external factors, that, okay, I pride my worth on this. And that's constant, that doesn't change. That's it, right? Even with your strong personal foundation, you took your A levels
Yeah.
and you did not do very well.
Yes, I didn't. Okay, and I just need to clarify, because when people in Raffles say they don't do well,
Okay, yeah.
it's like they
Comparatively
usually get
lah.
like Bs. But I think comparatively to them, I really didn't do well. I had
Okay.
like Ds and Es in my A-level results. And that is very like, far from the norm
It's quite far. Lah.
of Raffles people. Yeah.
It's quite far. So when you took the results slip, say Jen Wong, sorry, Jessie lah, you and your peer, Jen Tan, and then you go up to the teacher, right, and then you get the results slip. What's the first thing that went through your mind?
Okay,
you question
so
all your choices in the past 18
okay, I mean,
years.
I don't know if we are gonna include this in, but like
Yeah.
I don't know if it's insensitive, but
Sure.
basically, there were actually like security guards at like my okay, so basically it's like a hall, right? And everybody's queuing up for the A-level certs, like based on class. And at my class, there were like 2 security guards.
Okay.
And a security guard is there if you failed, like if you need to retain in like if you failed your A levels and
Okay.
you need to retain.
Okay.
So they'll escort you to like another room to break the news to you.
A security guard.
Yeah,
Why
2
do they
security
need a
guards.
security guard?
They-
Is it like emotional counselor or something?
I mean, it's just to like sort of escort them safely
Okay,
to like
okay.
the room.
That's so odd.
I mean,
Okay.
there were 2, and
Sure.
I think while waiting for my turn, I was really, really afraid. Okay. But to be truthful with all of you, I already knew that, I had a feeling that, okay, I wouldn't do well for my A levels, and
Okay.
I was very, very scared. When I saw the security guards, I was like, crap, like, please don't let that be me. Okay. When I took my grades, thankfully enough, I didn't fail any subjects, but it was bad enough that it really made me speechless, because I was like, I knew, what the benchmark was in getting into local universities.
Okay.
And I knew, I wanted to pursue like communications.
Yeah.
I wanted to pursue like mass media.
Right?
And I saw those grades and I was like, it's the end. Like, I was like my dreams had like crashed, And I think I told you this before, but I think at those moments, at that very moment, I didn't even have like tears, because I think a lot of questions was running through my head. Like, like the question of like, so everything that I did, everything that I was passionate about,
Yeah.
is it worth it? Because at the end of the day, the society still looks at that grade, right? University still looks at like your A-level results in order to get you into like the uni of your choice, right? And I was like, I was really at a place of brokenness. I was at a place of, what do I do now?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that process of recovery, for the lack of a better word, or how you moved on from there. For me, I think people know my story. I mean, of course, if you're most probably here for Jen, but just a bit of my story if you don't know. I also did badly in my A's. I think I had anxiety, and then I had a mental block, and I got a U for math. So I handed out blank papers, and even before I took my A-level results, it was really bad.
Yeah.
It was really bad to a point where I had depressive thoughts,
Yeah.
thinking of taking my own life. And I struggled with my mental health for a long period after, because my identity crumbled. The difference between you and me is that I had a very clear dream of what I wanted to be as well. But actually it's very similar. I also had a very clear dream of what I wanted to be. And because I pride my identity on that, and I felt that I could no longer achieve that anymore, it was very devastating. So can you share a bit about like how you kind of bounced back from then on?
Okay, I think to me, I always see setbacks as something that I can definitely get through. I don't see setbacks as something that is inconquerable.
Okay.
But I mean, for me, for my faith, right, as a Christian, I know that like there is a better plan for me. I know that there is something that at the end of like everything, but I mean, definitely, being human, like having all those like raw emotions that like rips through your mind at that point of time, it definitely is challenging.
Yeah.
Like comparing myself to my rest of my peers, I'm like, okay, so what is next for me?
Sure.
And also that factor of pride, like being able to answer to people when people ask you, how do you do? You don't want to say, oh, I did badly. That's just a pride thing. And I struggled with that. I struggled with that pride, being able to put down my pride and say, yeah, I did badly, but this is something that I'm going to take in my stride and I'm going to work towards the future that I want.
Okay.
I think faith was definitely an integral part in helping to carry me through because I knew that there was God's strength that could then carry me through as well. And I also saw it as a place that I think from those moments, because I was a cell leader in junior college. So to the rest of my cell group mates who did badly, I saw it as a way that I could be an inspiration and an encouragement to them that, okay, it's not the end of things.
Okay.
Definitely there was still that battle of what's next. Then there was also that end of me on more positive days where I'm like, okay, Jen, we can do this. We will get better and things will get better.
Sure.
Yeah, I think balancing all of that. Should I talk about my poly journey?
Yeah, I'm going to that. So I think actually I want to explore faith a little bit in a while. So just wait for that. But it is true having a personal foundation, right? Even not just in Christianity, but in general, if you have a specific faith and you believe in a higher power, research does show that gives you an kind of it's a strong. Okay, let me quote it now. According to studies in Abrahamic faiths, for context, because a lot of studies is done in the Western world where it's mostly Abrahamic faiths, which means that the Prophet Abraham was featured in Islam as well as Judaism. He was there, so that's why we call it Abrahamic faiths. And he shared that there's a strong inverse correlation between religious commitment and depression. Right? In simple terms, it means if you're more religiously committed, depression levels are less, because at least one of the factors is that you have a personal foundation and your worth is not tied to variables. So that helps, but there's also a downside to that, which I may explore a little bit later. But going into poly, right? So one of your options is that, okay, how did that even come about? I'm going to go into poly.
Okay, so basically when I was laying out my options, right, I was like, okay, go into a private uni, or should I go into poly? Poly was sort of my last choice. Just to backtrack a little bit is because I was currently doing an internship at the Smart Local, and that was my dream. Since I was in secondary 2, when they first sort of started booming. Those were the things that were driving me every week, because they're all about discovering a new side of Singapore, right? And for me, I wanted since secondary 2, my mission was to tell people that Singapore is not just a little red dot. So I went on adventures every week. I explored every alley around Singapore.
Got so much time. Wow, this girl studying, then you're playing soccer as well, right?
I was playing soccer in JC.
Suddenly you got one sport come as soccer as well. And then you're exploring on the weekends.
Yeah. And definitely church as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, those are things that it made me look forward to life.
Okay.
It made me go okay, there is something more than just studies.
Wow, every week I was so stressed in JC. I didn't have any time to do anything. But okay.
Yeah. And then, so and so in JC I was also in acting school. Yeah. So I also did acting school on weekends, and those were just some things that were keeping me going.
Okay.
Yeah. So being able to land that internship in the Smart Local, it was something that I had dreamed of for years. And considering the option of going into poly, that means that my dream would be disrupted. And to top it off with my poor A-level results, of that fear of not knowing what's ahead, the fear of not knowing, okay, can I even end up in a university? What's going to happen next? Those were all things that were tying me down. And when I weighed the options, I was when I applied for the poly application, I was really hesitant. I didn't want to do it. Okay. I was I really don't. I put down my pride. I said, okay, if it's God's plans for me, let's do it. I applied for it. Fast forward, I got rejected by one of the polys that I applied for. That poly was very well known for the course that I wanted to go. And when I got the application,
I'm surprised that they rejected you, by the way. Okay, go ahead.
When I got the rejection letter, I was what's next? Because you did badly in A-levels, you know that you sort of like your dream like internship is going to sort of be disrupted. And then I got rejected by poly. And I was like, I was really weighing all the options and I was like, you know, what am I going to do now? Like I couldn't believe it, I think. I was trying very hard to come to terms with it, but I couldn't. And so I just clung on to my faith. I was like, okay, you know, God, only you have the best plans for me and I will hold on to that. So I waited. Soon after I got acceptance from Singapore Poly. So I actually went into this course that did drama as well as psychology. So it was like applied psychology with drama. And I was like, okay, it wasn't like communications, but it was also like areas that I was passionate about, like acting and, you know, finding out more about like the human mind. So I was like, okay. And then there began the journey of terminating my internship, you know, telling my boss that, okay, like this is like the reality of things. I have to leave because I need to further my studies in poly.
Okay.
So there was that side of things, like the work side.
Okay.
And then on the social life side, and the family side, right? It's answering to your family members that, okay, like, sorry, you know, I'm not going to go to a university now. I'm going to go into a poly. And to my friends, I didn't even dare to tell them.
Okay.
I felt that it was so embarrassing. I think it was those moments that I really shut myself. It was very deep, dark moments that I was like, I don't want to share this part of my life to people. And that's very normal because we do want to share like the good parts of my life. And I think, you know, I was like closing up myself to all my friends. I only shared with like a few of my good friends. And then there I began my journey in poly. In poly, some of the people that I met in poly, they were very shocked that I was there. You know, it came to a point where when they ask you, oh, what school were you from? Because, you know, like people usually were from secondary school. I was just like, Raffles. Because like, I meant like, you know, like Raffles Secondary. But actually, I just came from JC. But then I was like, haha, it's okay. Raffles is also like Raffles JC, Raffles Secondary. I didn't want to tell them where I was from. I didn't want to tell them what my journey was. I was very apprehensive and I was also very defensive. So when people were like, when they found out that I just came from JC, they're like, huh, don't lie. You know, like, are you sure? Like, I was like, you know, I did badly for my A's. Then they're like, yeah, don't lie. Why are you here? We don't understand. Like, so people didn't understand why I was there. And that just added to the entire, you know, like doubt.
I imagine it's going to be very difficult.
It definitely added to the whole process of like weighing myself down and weighing my value and my identity down. It was, wow, I have to like breathe. It was like, it's tough times remembering those moments because it was truly moments where I really questioned everything that was happening.
Crazy. I think, I mean, really, because the thing is, in the grand scheme of things, when you look back at it, even for myself, right, even taking an extra year to study isn't much in the grand scheme of things. But because we're so conditioned, right, by pressure society, just a little diversion from the norm becomes a huge thing. And it's so weird, but it just becomes like this huge thing that we make up in our minds, right? And even though you had opposing forces like your faith to counter that, imagine if someone does not have that. They'll probably crumble. A lot of people do crumble actually.
Definitely.
And it's so like that's why you share it, kind of the best of both worlds, right? But you know, then next question, natural question is that like, how did that how long were you in poly? I think 1 semester. And then how did you deal with that?
So I was actually in poly for just a semester. Okay, I mean when I entered poly, my mindset was this, okay, this is my path now. I have 3 years here. I'm going to make the most out of it. And I'm going to go into the local university of my choice. So I went in very driven as well. I picked myself up and I was like, it's okay if your life looks different from everybody else because that has been the way for the past few years. You know, how my life has panned out was always different from everybody else's. And I was like, okay. I picked myself out and I went in and I mean, really, really thankfully, I actually got an interview from Nanyang Business School. So that's actually currently where I'm studying at now, NTU. Business school wasn't my top choice. I always feared math. I always feared like, you know, like accounting and stuff like that. So it wasn't one of my top choices. media was still my first choice. And so, but I really thank God because having an opportunity from a local uni, at a point of time, I was like, anything, if anybody comes, I would take it. So I went for the interview. And so that interview was for discretionary admission. So basically, they see your portfolio, they see like your resume. And when I went for the interview, they didn't even like talk about my grades. They looked at me as a person. And I left that interview almost in tears because I remembered how valued I felt.
Wow.
I remembered that, your identity isn't just grades.
Wow, I really love that, and the experience that you just shared.
Yes. It was a roller coaster. But I was like, if I get it, I'll be so thankful. And I remember I got that call. I was like, no. I was so happy because I remember like for all the friends gatherings that I went to, whenever they asked me what I was doing then, how's your internship at the Smart Local, I just like walked away from the conversation. I didn't even answer them because I didn't have the face and like the courage to tell them that I was in poly. But looking back now, it was really a journey of humility. It was a journey of like looking at how it was a journey of being able to say that, okay, your life being different, your life stepping into uncharted waters and being unconventional is perfectly fine. It's really how that willpower and that grit that you have in every moment and every season of your life that you give to every season of your life, and I felt that, in my time in poly, I did give that grit. And looking back, when I finally did get an offer from NBS and I went to uni, I was like, wow, I can't believe I just experienced all of that.
Sure.
Because now I get to tell people that, I was from poly, I was from JC, I got to experience the best of both worlds, guys. It's not something that it's normal. It's not something that you would expect out of someone. Definitely, there are definitely people who has gone through that. But I think out of my peers and out of my social circle, it definitely was something that was more unconventional. And living up to those expectations of being conventional and fitting into a typical stereotype or typical mold of what a society deems of you, that was definitely something that I had to break out of.
Yeah. Can I just cut in and chime in a little bit here, right? But you mentioned, because this, again, is on the topic of defining your own success and breaking free from societal pressures, right?
Yeah.
And you mentioned one core thing about humility. I think that it's very difficult in a society that prides itself on outcomes. That's very difficult. But the funny thing enough is that for me, my journey as well, I got into discretionary as well. But just like you, right? This is just a hunch. Like, just like you, if I had just gone down the path and not gone to university, whatever path that I had, I accepted it already. Like, I'm not sure whether you accepted that you might have to go through poly for 3 years. Maybe I feel that even if you had gone through that, you would still do well in your life.
I think I still would have struggled because when I look at all my other peers, because like 3 years in poly, which means that when I get into university, my peers would have graduated.
Yeah.
Right. So I think comparison is definitely an evil, right? And even when I was in poly, seeing all my friends post their acceptance letters, from my batchmates, it's like going to Harvard, going to Oxford.
And then
it's downplaying yourself, downplaying your value just by mere grades, just by mere exams that you sat through. And, now I think to myself, how ridiculous.
Yeah.
At that age of like 16, 18, when grades are all the things that matters to you, you are so caught up in that world that you fail to see the beauty of the many things in life that, has for you. Yeah.
Yeah, humility is a huge thing. Wow, I wish I could really go in depth with you on this topic, right? But we don't have time. But definitely if you are someone pursuing a passion, right, you got to understand that judgment is going to come just by virtue of you doing something unconventional.
Yeah.
And you got to have that grit and also the humility. We don't talk about this a lot, but to know that, hey, like it doesn't matter. Like I'm okay being different, and I'm gonna put myself at a place where because ego is actually is one of the core reasons why we fight.
Yeah, I mean, ego is definitely a natural thing. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that in certain moments, it's choosing to really humble yourself to that position and saying that, okay, I can do without my face. I can do without it, and I can just push on.
But moving on to eventually going into now in in NTU, right? Actually, I wanted to explore a bit of faith. Maybe let's take about 3 to 5 minutes to talk about this. Even though this is a topic by itself, but you mentioned a lot about your faith being a personal foundation, and I did share earlier that even objectively, right, looking at studies into faith because of social support, because of the assurance that someone's watching over you, it does help you to cope with certain struggles and give you an identity to lean on. But there's one article that I sent you recently, right? I think it was a professor at
Last night.
IMH. Oh, yeah, lah. Last night. Professor IMH, right, talking about this example of a boy whom his parents were missionaries. He grew up with a very strong foundation, but for some reason, he just kind of diverted away from his faith. He questioned a lot. And that was very crippling for him. It dispossessed him of his personal foundation. And because of that, tragically, even though he sought help, the psychiatrist wasn't able to save his life, and he took his own life at the end of it. Even though, faith is something that really gives people very strong foundation, right? There is also a side we need to be watchful of. And I wanted to talk to you about that. Like, do you have situations knowing people who have questioned, and how does that affect their resilience in those moments?
The resilience of me, or
I would say people who maybe question, and then they, because of that, like in the example of the study, right, they become inept because whatever they used to rely on so strongly is no longer there, and they feel this really crippling loss of identity. How would that, like, I was just wondering if that has ever you've I know it's a very deep question, but have you experienced that before, and personally maybe, or even in the people that you help?
yeah, I mean, I think it's a hard topic because faith looks very different from everybody else. And for me as a Christian, I have that strong foundation because I am able to discover that for myself, that the God that I believe in is real. Um and definitely as a cell leader, I have met people whose faith has been challenged by in terms of resilience. There definitely is doubt that creeps in because the concept, I guess, is the concept of a living God is intangible, right? People aren't able to see with our eyes who God is, but we can feel His presence. We can feel that the moments that really helps us to strengthen our faith as a Christian, right? I think when I meet these individuals who do lose their faith, sorry, the question is how
The question is, what advice will you share with them, especially when that's very crippling? Because, when they, like you said, faith exists on a spectrum, right? Even within a particular religion, it does exist on a spectrum, and people deal with challenges differently, or if they have different experiences. How then will you advise someone? Because I mean, we talked a lot about the value of faith. I don't deny that. Like, even listening to this, right? Even if you're not a Christian, or you have your own personal faith, or you have kind of a belief in something that keeps you grounded, I think that's one core principle in being resilient, and of course pursuing your own path as well, as in Jen's case. But I just want to just really, as a minor thing, just discuss what happens if, because reason why is because people might say, oh, we're just being one-sided. What about the other side, right? And having an counter argument makes for a good discussion.
yeah.
You say in essays.
Yeah, I mean, definitely just sharing from a Christian's point of view. Like from my point of view, if like I see that there are people that are struggling with the faith, I will just try to journey with them. I think Christianity or religion in general is not something that I can impose on anybody, but they have to discover it for themselves. They have to realize that, okay, this is real and this is like what I want to anchor my life by. It's not something that I can tell people that, like, hey, you need to be a Christian.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely like over the years, I think it's really sharing about my life with people, sharing, okay, like have who God is in my life, and then really joining with them, like helping them to understand the different questions that they might have. It is religion is definitely a complex issue to talk about. Everybody has their own opinions about it, but for me, my life and how it's been built up to this way, the different challenges that I actually went through and overcome it it all has to do with how God really put me out of it. And so I definitely stand very firm on the fact that, Christianity is real to me. Yeah. And definitely, if you would like to talk more about it, I would be happy to talk to you more about my journey. Yeah.
For sure. Just drop Jen a DM on that, especially if like I said, we don't have time to really dive deep into this, but it is a very important topic, like to
Definitely.
own your own faith in a broader sense, because of course it can be faith in God, but it also can be that faith in like everybody lives by faith. By default, they live by faith because when you go out there in the world, right, you face so many different things, and you need to have faith in something that keeps you going forward.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think for me, like as a Christian, like I recognize that purpose, and I think that why in our lives, why we are why we are doing certain things is something that will drive people, right? And that purpose for me, a huge part of it, I contributed to my Christian religion. Is a main pushing factor that drives me in the why of things. The different things that I do in my life, I do want to impact, I do want to influence the people around me.
That's great. Thanks for the discussion. I know it's rare, especially religions are a taboo topic, but I strongly believe that, like in respect, we can discuss issues like this and face it rather than kind of suppress it or run away from it. So I hope that gives you some perspective. But moving on to talk about success as well as passion, what does it mean to define your own success?
Yes. Okay. So I think success looks very different to everybody, right? In the lens of like someone who is chasing wealth, success might be, landing like a good job. Success might be like buying a good house, a good car. To me, success is just taking pride in the value of who I am, being able to pursue the things that I love, and seeing that, okay, there is more. There is that potential in me. And that is success to me, actually. I think it's very simplistic. It might not be something like, whoa, but it's just, yeah, like, being able to own the things that I have, being able to look at it and saying like, hey, I'm glad, I'm contented. I think success is also contentment. It doesn't have to look like $1 billion, but it can just be, things that makes you smile at the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's that I can argue that that's ironic because you're very driven, but it is not actually because you need gratitude for where you are before you can progress.
Definitely.
I talk about that a lot as well. Striving for all you can while being grateful where you are. How does one begin to do that, especially with so much pressure, right? How does one begin to start defining their own success?
Courage. You have to not be afraid. You have to be brave enough to feel like, okay, I am okay if I do not fit into the typical societal mold. You have to be able to look at other people's opinions and be open to those criticisms, open to those feedbacks, but not allowing like those feedbacks to really define your value. Because your value is created by you yourself, right? It's about the things that, like thinking, really sitting down and think, okay, what are the things that I really want to chase? What are the things that I really want to pursue? And am I okay if the societal pressures around me tell me that, okay, this isn't what you should do? Are you able to put all of these pressures aside and say that, okay, you know what? Not today. I'm still going to I'm still going to put my best foot forward, and I'm still going to do the things that I have set my mind to. I think for me, that was something that really helped me as a person, because after, like the first stage really is recognizing that, okay, people are opposing you, and that's normal. But how you deal with those criticisms, how you deal with those setbacks, like having bad A-level results, those are setbacks. And through each setback, I told myself, okay, just focused on how you can get better. I think when you are focused on pushing yourself to improve as a person, instead of allowing yourself to remain in those failures and setbacks, but instead looking forward and seeing, hey, I was here, but I want to be here. That's how you can then break out of that label as well.
Got it. How does one, apart from what you shared, right, is there any other way people can build their courage muscle?
I think how you can build courage really is developing that optimism in the things that you are dealt with. Right. So if you are a pessimistic person, and with every setback that you are given, you think like, okay, I'm not gonna make it out of it, that's how the mentality is going to carry through every situation. But if you tell yourself, okay, this is a setback, people deem me as a failure, but what is the one learning point that I can take out of this situation? What is one learning point that I can then improve for myself as a person that can then carry me one step forward? I think that constant process of reflection as well, of thinking, how can I be a better person? How can I improve? That is something that really stuck with
Got
me.
it. So reframing, we're really reframing your perspective.
Yes,
It's one
definitely.
core that I talk about even in schools, right? Because nothing is meaning except the meaning you assign to it.
Yeah.
And the event itself is not the stress, it's your evaluation or interpretation of it. And really developing that learned optimism or good interpretation, evaluation of that stressor in front of you. It's very crucial in developing that courage to move forward.
Yeah. But I would like to say that it doesn't come easily.
Okay.
It really does come from having everything being thrown at your face, and nothing is going your way, and you really sitting down and think, how can I go forward? Yeah.
In those moments, I think in adversity tests us. In those moments, we develop or we realize our capacity to be resilient.
Yes, definitely.
I
Yeah.
think we
And
can
I think
both.
resilience is something that is in everybody. We just have to discover that.
I love that. Yeah.
And that tenacity in fighting through the different things that life gives you is something that you have to discover for yourself. Nobody can tell you, hey, be courageous, and you're automatically courageous. You have to find that strength, whether it's through your faith or whether it's through the different people in your life that is supporting you and thinking, how can I get better, and picking yourself up from there.
Yeah, I think that was very powerful. If you're listening to this and maybe you're going through certain struggles or challenges, right? See, I know it's easy for me to say and see it as, but I still will share it anyway, right? The both of us have gone through low times, really low times where that courage is really being tested, right? But in those moments is where that fire is built. It's those moments where that clarity is actually built.
Yes.
When you come out of that, right, it gives you this strong anchor and this wow, you get to the next level. Your mind shifts to a different dimension, and what the pressures they used to affect you no longer affects you. That's it, right? At every level there's a depth. At every level there's a depth to conquer. And at my level, at your level now, we also have constantly pressures being to overcome.
Yeah, there are still a lot of setbacks that is lying ahead of me that I've yet to conquer.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I want to share, audience, that it's a journey that every stage you develop that small courage and build up along the way. We hope that this perspective helps you. Also, definitely seek support and people that can help you, because facilitated failure is important.
Yeah.
Not just on your own. Because there are people that give in to failure and then they go down the other path, and that's quite sad. Okay, last segment of the podcast, we're going to talk about passion. Passion, because wow, you're such a passionate individual. Just hearing you speak in the last 45 minutes, right, I can really feel your essence and your passion. What advice will you give to youth, right? First of all, right, I think discovering passion goes through different stages. First of all, you need to discover it. And we don't have time to talk about that. But if you want, you can listen to the episode, I think 40, Daryl, we talk about igniting your passion, how you can do that, how it's linked to purpose. You can go and check out Ikigai, which is a concept where you marry your practicality, your purpose, as well as what a society needs to kind of find that passion. But I want to talk more and delve into, once you identify the passion, or I feel that innately people know what they're passionate about, how do they then begin to pursue it? And how do they balance that with, say, pressures of practicality?
Okay, I think in a society like Singapore, being practical is important. I have friends, so when I was in Raffles, I was in a sports class. So I have friends who are like full-time sportsmen, right? And them deciding to become like a full-time sportsman, right? That is like solely driven by passion. I think in Singapore, it is also important to evaluate like the practical side of things, because it is true that, education is still a significant part. And passion is, to a lot of people, we're living in a time where people are still thinking that, like passion will only get you like somewhere. But I would say to be able to really chase your passions, you have to take action steps, right? You can't just sit back and think like, okay, like, if I, for example, if I want to be an actress, like I just like wait for the acting jobs to come to me. No, you have to actively pursue these opportunities for yourself. I would say something something else that's very important is also networking with the correct people, right? If, for example, if you want to be a full-time professional sportsman, who are some people that you can connect with? Who are some people that can give you the advice in perhaps paths that they have already taken before? And so for me, I think I do attend a lot of like different like mentorship programs and stuff like that, so that I can have mentors that can actually walk through with me, like, okay, like how will like living your life in a certain way actually affect how you want things to turn out. Yeah.
Okay. So to kind of go summarize that, it's really about taking action.
Yes.
And not just like sitting around. This is a funny joke that I thought of when you were sharing, right? This person that told God, like, God, can you please help me to go somewhere in life? Help me to win the lottery. So like every week he was praying. And then he died. He died. That was a big climax. He died. It's quite funny. Like, he died and then he went to heaven. Then I asked God, how come all this while I prayed and I asked for me to win lottery and you did nothing? Then God said, at least buy a ticket.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot expect things to come to you.
Sure.
I think in everything that you do, have an action plan for it. For example, I think a very practical step is, for example, if you want to be like a content creator and you want to like to spend your full time on that, right? Like give yourself like 3 years, do your best in those 3 years, and after those 3 years, evaluate like where are you doing now? Like how are you doing and where are you at? Are you at where you envision yourself to be? And if you feel like that doesn't work out for you, then begin to reevaluate your choices and your goals once again, right? I think it's definitely a process of constant evaluation, constant reflection of like what you imagine your life to be. And definitely, like not everything goes your way. So always reflect, what are things that are keeping you alive at these points of time. Don't just be driven by the wealth and success of things. Don't just be driven by like the money side of things, but really see that, okay, like, is this somewhere that I can envision myself doing something? Is this somewhere that I can envision myself doing for the future? Am I going to be happy? I think that's really the most important to me, happiness. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. I like how you mentioned 3 years. People might listen to that, Jen, you sure or not? 3 years. The 3 months really cannot take it already. But I love how you mentioned 3 years because
it's the grit, right?
Yeah, it is the grit because like again, this is we did an episode on when to quit, when to engage in grit. Y'all can listen to the episode on Mindset Hacks if you're really thinking about, okay, when do we push forward? When do we reevaluate? I dedicated an episode just for that. So y'all can go and listen to that. But I think in general, the principle is that you got to build a small dream first.
Yes.
I learned this from Jay Shetty. You want to build a big dream first. Okay, you have a big dream, that's fine, but build a small dream first. And if you enjoy the small dream, you're invigorated by it. And the results also show that you have some results, tangible results, and you evaluate that, then you can go for the bigger dream.
Yes, I fully agree.
Right? And if not, then okay, then reevaluate it and see if you want to pivot to something else. Like you need to have the humility to also accept that you need to pivot.
Yeah, I think we all have to start somewhere. And our starting ground all looks different, right? Some people might just have more opportunities than others, but it's how you work for it as well. Yeah.
Okay. Share more about your passion. So how do you apply that personally? Because you do content creation. You can check out Jen's Instagram. It's very creative. She gets a lot of sponsors as well. So you're kind of like I call it / career. Like interview with Vanessa Ho. I'm not sure you saw. Yeah. So she's someone that's also like pursuing multiple things at different times. She's an entrepreneur. She does content as well. So it kind of reminds me a bit of that. What value do you see in doing multiple things and pursuing those things? Just talk to me about that. Why you do those things?
I think for me, passion is really ingrained in every single thing that I do. I do pride myself in being someone who is very passionate, and I would like to give my best in everything that I commit myself to. Yeah, so I think in those moments where passion is the one that is like the driving factor, so it definitely means that failures will come at me. Like there are days where I'm absolutely drained from the things that I'm handling, the things that I'm committed to, right? Yeah. Because being a full-time student and yet
you're
balancing,
running around having so many shoots and then doing assignments and then creating frames.
Yeah, I think recognizing what drives you is important. And for me, time management is also something that's very key, right? We all have that same 24 hours a day. So it's really how you choose to make use of it. It's what you make out of that day, right? For me, I plan, down to like the minute of what I'm going to do in that day. When I wake up, it's like back to back, back to back, back to back, all the way. Like I even plan like my lunchtime, like 30 minutes for my lunchtime, then like incorporating maybe like a 15 minutes rest time. And then from then on, it's like all back to back. And I see the value of how like a schedule actually pushes me to work for the things that I want. Because every day when I wake up, I'm like, okay, this is a to-do list I have to do. And I want to check it off at the end of the day. I want to make sure that I've completed the things that I've set out to do. So so definitely having like a checklist of like the different commitments and ensuring that you are giving your best in each commitment that you are setting yourself to. Because sometimes people, they do spread themselves too thin, right? And they're like, okay, I'll commit to this. Ooh, sorry.
She's so passionate until my frame also. How you carry on?
Yeah, so like they commit themselves to many different things, but they spread themselves like too thin. But for me, before I go to like each project meeting, for example, I am like, okay, I want to give my best in this. For example, for the frames, I also want to give like my best in my business. So I set aside time every day. It's a balance of doing things that drains me, like studying, and also doing things that fulfills me. So I think having that balance in your daily life, like for every like, let's say like 3 things that drains you, have one thing that fulfills you, right? And that really like pushes you through the day, because I'm like, okay, yeah. So
the way you say it's so sad, drains you.
Okay, I mean,
sorry, I know get what you mean. I get what you mean. Not as passionate in doing it.
Yes, because there are definitely things that are like that. Like, like for example, for us students, there are different things that we have to do that we might not definitely enjoy. Yeah, so that's what just works for me. So for example, after like 3 project meetings, I'm like, okay, time to create some content for Kairos Frames. Then I'll like do some social media designs. I'll contact my customers. I will like do the designs for them, or I'll like think what should my next collection be. And also another factor of it is how you push failure aside and rebound from those failures, right? So I think definitely, like being a freelance actress, so I'm not tied to any agency, so I have to find those opportunities for myself. And so rejection is very common. Like you can go for like 10 auditions and not get accepted for any. But I think at the end of every rejection, right, I see it as an opportunity for growth. Right. So I look at those rejections and I think back, okay, what are the things that I actually did poorly during the audition? What are the things that I could have improved on? And with every experience, I learned how to push myself forward. I learned how to take it as an improvement to really better myself as a person. And that is applicable for across everything, like whether it's a job interview, or perhaps a failure from an exam. Yeah, those are things that I pride myself. Those are things that I adopt. Those mindsets of healthy reflection. Not putting yourself down like completely, but thinking, hey, where is that space of growth for me? Where is that place where I can say like, okay, these are things that I can do better. Yeah.
Yeah, you predicted my next question, which is how do you deal with failure? Is there a specific mindset practice towards it? So I'm glad that you answered that, because failure is a huge part of pursuing your passion.
Yeah.
And you got to fail forward in a very positive way.
Yes.
We are coming towards the end, but I guess we can... I'll leave you some time to share a last message with them, but I want to talk about my frames again.
And his father's frames.
Yeah, my father frame. So yes, we talked to me a little bit about Kairos Frames, how you began it. I know you shared a bit at the beginning, but maybe elaborate a little bit. The mission behind it. What are some of the stories that people share with you when they actually get these frames?
Right. I think the main concept of what inspires me behind these frames is love, joy, and hope. That's something that I really anchor myself by, and that's a message that I want to spread to people, especially with like my religion. That is also like the core beliefs of like my religion as a Christian, right? So I think being able to spread those joy through a medium that I'm passionate in, a medium that I know I love designing, I love creating handicraft gifts. And then also being able to combine entrepreneurship. I specialize in marketing. So being able to use like the marketing things that I have learned, that I've applied through that I've learned over the years, it's something that is really exciting. People might be like, how do you balance like being an entrepreneur while doing your studies? And I think it's really what drives me. Like being able to create these frames and also learning from like the setbacks of it, because I think like it sounds very nice, like being an entrepreneur, but people might not see like the hardships of it. People might not see like, okay, like with each complaint that I get, how can I improve? And definitely, like many mistakes that I have made that I have also been learning along the way. I just started it last year at the end of the year, so I am still like rather fresh and new into it. But definitely entrepreneurship is something that I've always wanted to pursue as a young individual. I've started like blog shops. Since secondary one, I was like selling like all the trendy stuff like hair chalks, arm candy, clothes, etc. But this is something that I really see the value in, because when I hear of the stories of joy, when people like surprise their loved ones, surprise for wedding proposals, etc.
Sure. I'll video my dad later. It's my dad's birthday present. It's a frame of us when we were young and his favorite songs over there. So yeah, you'll be really surprised at this. But sorry to cut you off.
It's okay. So I think that in Singapore we don't speak the words that we feel enough, right? We don't tell the people that we appreciate them enough. We don't tell the people that we love them enough, right? And I think this is really a medium to really encourage people, speak up for the daily moments that you have and cherish them. Really cherish the day. Like I think my business, like the sorry, Ita, could you pass us the brown packet? Yeah, so like if you look at like the sticker, it says, for such a time as this, cherish each moment and make them count. And everything is made beautiful in its time. So that's something that I really stick by, because I believe that we know with every setback that we face in life, there is that beauty in things, and it's how we choose to look at it. So I hope that these frames really serve as an encouragement, as well as like a reminder and a declaration to each individual who receives it, that okay, cherish the daily moments, because there's so much beauty in life, and that's what I really hope to see. That's something that I really hope that like out of my daily life, how can I choose to seek the beautiful moments and and show gratitude for those moments as well.
I think happiness, right, doesn't just lie in rewards, but also making the journey rewarding.
Right? And definitely human interactions, like
for sure,
interacting with people.
100%. And it's not just in the targets, but also in the targets of our fascination. And I think this is something I strongly believe in as well, and that's why we're having this collaboration. I wanted to ask you to share a last message, but it feels as if you already shared it, because the business is an extension of you. I think that's a really beautiful message. And if you all want to support...
I want a last message.
Let's go. Okay, can. But before we go into the last message, yes, do check it out. Like I said, we're having a promotion. Every $30 you spend, you get $2 off. Of course, if you're a millennial, it might be, depending on your financial situation, do keep that in mind. But if let's say you can afford it, it's definitely value for money, because profits are actually very razor thin. Talking to Jen, and she really puts a lot of effort into creating this, and for the effort she puts in, the cost behind it, I think it's a very affordable, reasonable price.
So all you need to do is just go to my website. So you can just type tinyurl.com/Kairos Frames. Okay. And then when you're making an order, when I contact you, just code Kevin. Just code like rebound.
RWR. We'll come up with some hashtag RWR or something.
Something like that. And just quote it to me, and I'll give you the discount.
We'll figure out the logistics. We'll probably put it in the description. If you all need, I'll put it in the description below so that you all can do that. Any questions you can ask Jen.
Yes.
Okay, let's enough of my egoistic face here. Put back this here. Yes, last message you have.
Yes. I think the last message that I really want to leave with all of you is to be the best version of yourself. And how the best version of yourself looks like is very, very different for each individual. So don't let comparison catch up with you and like compare yourself with like everybody else around you, but look at yourself, your value, know your worth, know your identity, and know how you can pick yourself up from it. Know how you can pick yourself up from each setback, how you can get better, and how you can always be on that journey of learning, growing, and improving. Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. With that, I guess we have come to the end of today's session.
Yeah.
Stay resilient. I hope that this has provided you certain principles and inspiration to pursue your passions and to define your own success. If you enjoyed this episode, do share with someone that can benefit them. Either on Instagram, you can share it through stories, tag us, let us know what you think, or just share it personally, forward them, or you can ask them to scan the Spotify code. Okay, sorry, I'm distracted. But yes, and join us on Clubhouse as well if you're on Clubhouse. But it's called Rebound with Resilience. Just search my club. You can join. Follow us on Spotify as well for shorter episodes if you're watching this on YouTube.
Just follow.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So with that, stay resilient and we'll see you next time. Bye.
See you.